I was leaning against the floor-to-ceiling window of my downtown apartment, tracing the city lights with a finger still warm from my morning coffee. The silk of my blouse slipped softly across my shoulder, a reminder of how far I'd come, yet my phone buzzed insistently on the marble countertop, pulling me out of my quiet reverie. It was a text from my sister, Emily. "Can we talk? Mom says it's urgent." Just reading it made my chest tighten. Memories I'd tried to tuck away. The night they sold my dream car, the sting of favoritism, the suffocating feeling of being invisible, came rushing back. I had spent years carefully constructing a life they couldn't touch, a life they didn't even know existed. My office was sleek, my career thriving, my independence absolute, but behind the smile, there was a ledger of pain, of betrayal turned into determination. I sipped the last drop of coffee, listening to the low hum of traffic below. The air smelled faintly of rain and city asphalt, fresh, sharp, alive. For a moment, I considered ignoring the message. But curiosity, or maybe a little satisfaction, won. I picked up my phone, fingers brushing the polished screen. I could almost hear the ghosts of their old dismissals, whispering, "She'll never make it." Tonight, they would see the truth. I was 17 when it happened, standing in our cramped garage, my heart pounding against my ribs like a warning drum. My parents were laughing, talking about how practical it would be to sell the car I had been saving for months to my sister, Emily. My dream car, a cherry red convertible I had painstakingly researched, test-driven, and fantasized about, was gone in an instant. The words hit me like icy water. "We think Emily needs it more," Mom said, smiling as if handing over my future was nothing. I remember the lump in my throat, my hands trembling so badly, I almost dropped my phone when I tried to call my best friend. I wanted to scream, to tell them it wasn't fair, that I had worked for every penny of my summer savings. But instead, I stood there, feeling invisible and small, as though I'd been erased from my own life. That night, I locked myself in my room, the faint glow of streetlights spilling across my posters and journals. I pressed my grandmother's old silver bracelet into my palm, a gift she had given me the summer before, and whispered her words that had always felt like armor. "Your worth isn't in what they give you, but what you create for yourself." I remember crying until my eyes were dry and red, then making a choice. I would not wait for them to see my value. I would build it quietly, brick by brick, without their approval, without their acknowledgement. That decision felt like the first breath after holding my lungs under water too long, sharp, necessary, and terrifyingly liberating. By the time I emerged from my room, the garage lights had dimmed. My parents had moved on, and Emily was already boasting to her friends about her new ride. I clenched the bracelet in my pocket and made a silent vow. One day, they would see the woman I would become, and I would decide whether they deserved a place in her life. I left home that summer with a duffel bag, a stack of notebooks, and that silver bracelet clutched in my hand like a compass. College had been my ticket out, but I knew I needed more than textbooks and lectures. I needed strategy, grit, and a relentless refusal to be overlooked. I moved into a tiny apartment with peeling wallpaper and a view of the fire escape, the city stretching endlessly below like a challenge waiting to be conquered. It wasn't glamorous. I worked 3 part-time jobs, barista by morning, receptionist by afternoon, and tutor by night. My hands ached, my eyes burned, and I often wondered if anyone would ever notice. But then I met Ms. Parker, a seasoned marketing executive who saw potential in my stubborn determination. She took me under her wing, showing me the ropes of negotiation, branding, and persuasion, the skills that would become my arsenal. The first weeks were humiliating. I made mistakes that cost me clients and confidence alike. I remember one evening, curled up on my threadbare couch, clutching my grandmother's bracelet, whispering, "You didn't come this far to fail." I practiced presentations in front of my bedroom mirror, perfected spreadsheets until my eyes blurred, and slowly, painfully, started to see results. The first small victory came with a freelance marketing pitch that landed a modest but crucial client. The money wasn't much, but it was mine, and it fueled my sense of self-worth in a way no family approval ever had. I celebrated quietly, no social media posts, no calls to anyone back home, because this was mine, untainted by judgment. Months turned into years. I learned how to read people, how to anticipate markets, how to turn setbacks into lessons. My first big sale, a six-figure campaign, came after nights of research, rewriting proposals, and refusing to give in when bigger firms laughed at my youth. I remember standing in my tiny kitchen, sipping lukewarm coffee, and feeling a thrill that was entirely my own. That night, I made a note in my journal. They sold my dream car. I'll buy the one I want, and then some. I was careful, strategic. My success remained hidden from my family. Instagram posts were vague, casual updates, never revealing my real income or achievements. I wanted them to meet the woman I was becoming on my terms, strong, independent, unshaken by the favoritism and dismissal that had haunted my teenage years. Every win was a step toward the moment I knew would come, the day they would finally see me, not as the overlooked daughter, but as the woman who had surpassed every expectation. The knock at my door echoed through the apartment like an unexpected drumbeat. My heart didn't race. I felt a quiet calm settle over me, the kind that comes from knowing you've earned your place in the world. I opened the door to find my parents and Emily standing there, eyes wide with what they thought was concern but was really curiosity. They hadn't seen me in years, not really. They expected the timid, struggling version of me. "Hey, we thought we'd stop by," Mom said, glancing nervously at the polished marble floor, the abstract painting I'd bought at a gallery downtown, the sleek glass desk that reflected the city lights behind me. Emily looked smug at first, holding her designer bag like it gave her some unearned confidence. I gestured for them to enter. "Come in," I said, my voice calm, almost conversational. But behind it was a steel edge they hadn't felt in a long time. I let them take in the space first. The modern furniture, the laptop open to a campaign proposal worth more than their annual income, the car keys to my cherry-red convertible sitting on the counter like a trophy. Emily's jaw tightened. "Wait, is that?" I smiled. "Yes. That's my car. I bought it 2 years ago, and it's fully paid off." Mom's hand went to her mouth. Dad's eyes flicked from the car to me, as if trying to reconcile the daughter they'd underestimated with the woman standing before them. "I've also expanded my business," I continued, letting the weight of each word land. "I run a marketing firm. Our latest campaign just hit 6 figures in revenue. And before you ask, yes, every penny is mine. I worked for it. No help. No shortcuts." They blinked, frozen, faces pale. Emily looked like she wanted to speak, but no words came out. I let the silence linger, thick and uncomfortable, savoring the way the truth stretched the room like a taut wire. Then I walked toward my office window, the city sprawling behind me. "Remember the car you sold me for Emily?" I said softly, almost pityingly. "You thought it was just a teenage dream. You thought it didn't matter. But I made sure it did. Not because of anger, because I refused to let someone else define my worth." Mom's voice cracked. We didn't realize." I shook my head, stepping closer to the desk. "No. You didn't. And now you get to see what happens when someone refuses to stay small." I gestured to the financial statements on the desk, the contracts lining the shelves, the awards I had tucked in discreet corners. "This is me. All of it. The car, the company, the independence, mine. I earned every bit." Emily's face turned from smugness to shock, then bitterness. Dad's shoulders slumped. Mom's eyes glistened. For the first time in my life, they were speechless. They had underestimated me, dismissed me, sold my dream, and now they were forced to confront the woman they never believed I could be. I let the moment hang, letting them absorb the truth in full. The girl they thought was powerless was gone. In her place stood a woman who controlled her destiny, who could bend situations to her will without bitterness, only precision. And they were finally seeing it, all of it. The room was heavy with silence, but this time it wasn't uncomfortable, it was deliberate. I finally allowed myself to take a seat behind my desk, hands folded, exuding the calm authority I had cultivated over years of relentless effort. My parents and Emily remained standing, unsure whether to retreat or plead. I let them stew for a moment longer, savoring the power that had once been theirs, now firmly in my hands. "I'm not here to punish anyone," I began, my voice steady measured. "But I am here to set terms. Because things need to change, for you and for me." Mom swallowed hard. "Terms?" "Yes," I said. "Emily, you're going to repay the cost of the car, every cent. Not as revenge, but as a lesson. I won't have favoritism or entitlement rewarded in my family. And while we're at it, I expect you to find a goal of your own, something meaningful, something you earn rather than take." Emily's eyes widened, and I could see the shock give way to a flicker of resentment. I didn't flinch. "This is your chance to grow. To stop relying on others for what you want. Think of it as financial therapy," I added with a hint of wry humor. Turning to my parents, I continued. "Mom, Dad, I love you both, but I will no longer tolerate dismissals or favoritism. That ends today. If you want to maintain a relationship with me, you need to acknowledge the decisions you made and support each of us as individuals rather than comparing us. That includes respecting boundaries, celebrating achievements without jealousy, and learning to trust rather than control." Mom's lips trembled. Dad's usual sternness faltered. We didn't know how much it hurt," Mom admitted, her voice small. "And that's part of the point," I said gently, leaning forward, my eyes meeting theirs. "You didn't know. But now you do. So it's time to do better. Actions matter more than apologies, and I'll be watching." I paused, letting the weight of my words settle. "I'm willing to help you, but only under these conditions. Everyone has to take responsibility for themselves. No shortcuts, no excuses. I've worked too hard to repeat old mistakes in my family, and I won't let them define me or my future." Emily swallowed hard, nodding slowly. I understand. I'll repay it." Mom's hand shook slightly as she reached for mine. "We'll try. We'll change." I offered a small, forgiving smile, the kind that carried both warmth and authority. "Good. That's all I ask. Change isn't instant, and it isn't easy. But it's possible if you're willing to face your mistakes and grow." I let them digest that. The dynamic had shifted. I was no longer the powerless daughter, the one they overlooked or sold dreams from. I was the architect of my life, the one setting the rules, the one holding the power with grace rather than anger. And for the first time in years, I felt the relief of balance, the calm of knowing that fairness, accountability, and respect would finally be the foundation of our relationships moving forward. Weeks passed after the confrontation, and change began to quietly ripple through our family. Emily started working diligently at a small business she had once dismissed as boring, and I noticed her confidence growing in a way that wasn't dependent on someone else's approval. She repaid the car in full, installment by installment, each payment a tangible acknowledgement of accountability. I watched her grow, sometimes impatiently, sometimes with relief, but always with a sense of justice quietly restored. My parents, too, shifted. Mom began asking for advice rather than offering commands. Dad started listening before judging, learning to celebrate my achievements without comparison. The tension that had lingered for decades slowly softened, replaced by mutual respect, fragile at first, but real. One evening, I sat on my balcony with a silver bracelet wrapped around my wrist, just as I had years ago in my bedroom, feeling the same quiet strength that had guided me then. I reflected on the journey, the sting of betrayal, the sleepless nights, the lonely victories, and the moments of doubt that almost broke me. And yet, every hardship had been a stepping stone toward the woman I had become, resilient, composed, and fully aware of her own worth. I realized that the bracelet, the symbol of my grandmother's faith in me, had never been just about strength. It had been a promise that I could create my own life, define my own success, and hold my ground with grace. And in seeing my family slowly embrace their own growth, I understood the full power of that lesson. Empowerment is not just about triumph, it's about shaping the world around you while remaining true to yourself. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, I whispered to no one in particular. I finally have the life I was meant to lead. And I did it on my own terms. I smiled, feeling a sense of completion, of balance, of peace. The car, the money, the betrayal, they were no longer wounds, but fuel. Fuel that had propelled me forward, transformed pain into purpose, and made me a woman unshakable in her independence and grace. And in that quiet evening, with the city alive below and the bracelet warm against my skin, I knew one simple truth. I had earned everything, and I would never let anyone take it away again.